They say some people walk into your life like a whisper. He came in like a storm. I met him on the worst night of my year, maybe my life. My company was collapsing. My engagement had just ended in front-page disgrace, and I was seconds from breaking apart in a hotel bathroom when I walked out and locked eyes with him, Adrian Locke. The kind of man mothers warned daughters about. Cold eyes, smirking lips, a reputation soaked in scandal and power. Everyone in Manhattan whispered about him, how he made billion-dollar deals and broke hearts like glass dot. And that night, he offered me a drink. No names, no expectations, just two strangers trying to forget the world. I should have walked away. Instead, I let him buy me whiskey. I let him listen when no one else cared. I let him look at me like I wasn't broken, like I still had something worth wanting. And when he asked for my number, I gave it, heart pounding, hands trembling, knowing full well what he was. A mistake. But the next morning, I woke up to a text that read, "Still thinking about that storm in your eyes. Tell me your name." This time my name was Elise Morgan. I had spent my whole life playing it safe, checking every box, pleasing every voice but my own. But something in me cracked that night, something that had been caged too long. We started meeting in quiet places. Late dinners, walks after midnight, hidden corners of the city where no one knew us. Every time I saw him, I told myself this was the last, that I couldn't afford this. Adrian wasn't just a man, he was a war zone, a billionaire with enemies, scandals, and a past that no woman should ever walk into. But I kept walking, because when he touched me, the world went quiet, and for once, I didn't feel like a disaster. One night, after weeks of pretending this was casual, we ended up in his penthouse, rain hitting the windows, the city flickering below us like firelight. He looked at me for a long time, like he was memorizing my shape, and then whispered, "Loving me will ruin you?" I could have laughed. Instead, I kissed him, because something in me had already decided I would rather burn than wonder what it felt like to be his. But I didn't know the truth yet. I didn't know the one thing that could turn this from forbidden to fatal. Because, while I was falling into him, I had no idea who Adrian Locke really was. And I had no idea he was about to become the reason I might lose everything I'd worked for. Not just my career, not just my name, but my entire life. And still, I didn't stop. There's a kind of silence that doesn't come with peace. It comes with questions. And the moment I found that file, my company's name printed in black ink, on Adrian's desk, I knew I was standing in the eye of a storm that had only just begun. He didn't see me read it. I told myself I hadn't really read it either, that the panic rising in my chest was just guilt for snooping. But the words were there, etched into my memory. Target acquisition, Morgan Industries, my company, my father's legacy. The thing I'd fought to rebuild from ruin. And Adrian Locke, the man I was slowly losing myself in, he was watching it all from the other side. I didn't ask him that night, didn't scream, didn't run. I just smiled, pretended I hadn't seen anything, and let him hold me like nothing had changed. But something had. Everything had. The next morning, I stood in my office, staring at the boardroom glass like it might give me answers. My assistant asked if I was okay. I lied, of course. I was learning how to lie too easily lately. I tried to tell myself it could be a mistake, a coincidence, a name on a file that didn't mean anything. But I'd spent enough time in corporate war zones to know that billionaires didn't keep files for fun, and Adrian wasn't known for mercy. He hadn't mentioned my company once, not even in passing, not when I told him I was trying to save it, not when I'd opened up about what it meant to me. He'd just listened, with those eyes that made it so easy to fall and so hard to think. Was he playing me the whole time? I told myself I needed space, time to think. I ignored his texts, let his calls ring out, but that only made the silence louder. 3 days passed. Then he showed up. I came home late, exhausted, only to find him leaning against my door like he belonged there. No warning, no smile, just him, dangerous, beautiful, unreadable. "You're avoiding me," he said, "and you're pretending you're not trying to buy my company," I replied, voice sharp. He didn't flinch, so I unlocked the door, let him follow me inside, and then I turned to him and asked the question that had been burning holes in my chest for days. "Are you the reason we're under review? Are you trying to take what's left of my life?" He didn't speak at first. He just looked at me with something between guilt and sorrow. Then, finally, he said, "I didn't come after you. My board did. I found out after the deal was already moving." "Then why didn't you tell me?" "Because I knew what it would sound like, what it would look like. And you still stayed." "I didn't stay," he said, stepping closer, his voice cracking just enough to sound human. "I fell. Those words should have broken me open. They almost did. But trust doesn't rebuild itself with confessions. And love, real love, doesn't grow in shadows." "Tell me everything," I said, "right now. No more lies." And he did. He told me about the deal, about the executive votes, about how he tried to push the acquisition off the table and lost. He told me he thought he could end it from the inside, that he didn't want to lose me before he had a chance to really have me. I wanted to believe him, God, I did. But all I could hear was my father's voice. The day he died, "Never let someone get close enough to destroy you from the inside." And Adrian, he was already inside. Still, I didn't ask him to leave. I just stood there, caught between what I knew and what I felt, praying that somehow just this once both could be true. I stared at the screen long after the email went cold. The photo was grainy, but there was no mistaking the faces. Adrian and Michael, my ex-fiancé, the one who left me broken in a courtroom scandal and vanished into silence. The man who had taken my trust, my heart, and nearly my name. There they were, shaking hands, smiling, like old friends or business partners. I felt my lungs twist around the edges of panic. I had questions more than I could hold, but none of them made sense. Because the one man I thought had nothing to do with my past was suddenly tangled inside the worst part of it. What was Adrian doing with Michael 2 months before I met him? I didn't ask right away. I didn't even reply to the email. I let it sit in my inbox like a loaded gun. The next time Adrian came over, he kissed me like nothing had changed. Like we were still two people lost in the fire of something that felt too big to name. And I let him God. I let him. He ran his hands down my back, whispered things into my skin that made me forget every scar I carried. We didn't talk. We didn't need to. Our bodies were better at lying than our mouths ever were. But after, when the room was quiet and our breath was slow, I asked him, "Do you know Michael Langston?" The name made him go still. He sat up slowly, pushed his hands through his hair like he was stalling for a lie. But I watched his face carefully. It wasn't guilt I saw. It was something deeper. Regret. The kind you only carry when it's personal. "We met once," he said, "before I knew about you. He came to me looking for investors. Said he had a plan to take down Morgan Industries and profit from the fallout." My blood went cold. "You listened to him?" I turned him down. "Then why is there a photo of you two laughing like you've known each other for years?" He didn't answer right away. He stood, pacing the room like the walls were closing in. "I was curious," he admitted. "When I heard your name a month later when you walked into my life, I recognized it. And part of me thought maybe it was fate." "Fate?" I snapped. "Fate isn't meeting the man who tried to destroy me and then sleeping with his contact. I didn't know what he did to you." He growled. "Not until you told me. And by then, you were already too deep." He walked to me, gripped my arms. "I never used you. Not once. Everything between us was real. But I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. All I could hear were the echoes of Michael's voice. The day he walked out of my life. You're too emotional, Elise. That's your weakness." And here I was again, emotional, spiraling, falling for someone who might have been playing me from the start. "I need time," I whispered. He stepped back like I'd slapped him. "I get it," he said. "But don't wait too long. Because I'm not the kind of man who waits forever." He left without another word. And for the first time since this all began, I didn't chase him. That night, I pulled the covers up to my chin, curled into the smallest shape I could make, and let the ache settle into my bones. Because the truth was, loving Adrian wasn't just dangerous. It was starting to feel like a slow unraveling. One thread at a time, he was pulling everything apart. And I was still letting him. The voice memo played on a loop in my head. "He was always one step ahead of you, Elise." Michael's words burrowed beneath my skin, dragging old wounds to the surface, memories I'd buried just to breathe again. I tried to ignore it. Tried to tell myself it was manipulation. That Michael had everything to gain by ruining what I had with Adrian. But the problem wasn't what he said. It was how much of it I believed. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't eat the next morning. Instead, I stared at my reflection in the mirror, wondering when I stopped recognizing the woman looking back. I used to be sharp, strategic, untouchable. But now, I was just in love and terrified. I showed up to Adrian's office unannounced. His assistant tried to stop me. I didn't care. I pushed through the doors like a storm and found him in a meeting with men who looked like they owned the world. He looked up and everything stopped. He dismissed them with a look, just a single, cold glance. That was the kind of power Adrian Locke held. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if it terrified me or turned me on. "You're shaking," he said, closing the door behind me. I got another message. He didn't ask from who. He didn't need to. Instead, he walked to the bar, poured me a glass of water, not whiskey, and handed it to me like it might save me from drowning. "I don't know what Michael told you," he said, "but he's a liar. So are you." I snapped. He flinched, just slightly, just enough. "Was this all part of the plan?" I asked, voice cracking. "Did you know who I was when you approached me that night?" "No." "Don't lie." "I didn't," he said, stepping closer. "I swear, Elise, I didn't know you were that Elise. Not until the third time we met. Not until I was already gone, obsessed," he whispered. He reached for me, but I pulled away. "I can't tell what's real anymore," I said. It feels like I'm drowning in something I can't name." He looked at me like I was the only truth he'd ever known. "Then let me prove it." He took my hand and led me to a locked drawer. Inside was a folder, thick, confidential. He placed it in my hands. "What is this?" "My resignation," he said. "From the deal, from the board, from every piece of leverage they thought they had." I opened the folder. It was real. Signed, dated, filed. "You're walking away from billions," I whispered. "I'm walking toward you." Tears hit my eyes before I could stop them. But tears weren't the same thing as forgiveness. They were just proof I still felt everything too much. "Why would you give all that up?" "Because I've destroyed things before, Elise. I've burned lives to keep mine intact. But not you. I won't lose you just to win a game. One stopped caring about the moment I met you. It should have been enough. That should have been the moment I fell completely. But something still didn't add up." A whisper I couldn't shake. And that whisper turned into a scream when I got back to my office. My CFO was waiting. "There's a new investor," he said. "Just acquired 22% of Morgan Industries." I blinked. "Who?" He handed me a name. "Locke Holdings." I froze. I thought Adrian walked away from the board. "He did," my CFO said. "But the investment came through a silent partner. A name I didn't recognize, but one I suspected Adrian knew too well. He hadn't walked away. He'd just changed his mask. And this time, I wasn't sure if I was the lover or the pawn. The line went dead, and with it, so did every illusion I had left. He didn't deny it. He didn't even try. I sat there, in my office that no longer felt like mine, surrounded by silence thick with betrayal. My phone slipped from my fingers, crashing onto the hardwood floor, and I didn't bother to pick it up. He had bought me. Not in the way the world gossips about cars and diamonds and lavish distractions. No, he bought my life, my name, my father's legacy, my future. And I had let him touch me like he wanted none of it. I should have hated him. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But heartbreak doesn't come clean. It comes messy and uneven, like the tremble in your throat when you still crave the person who destroyed you. The next day, I showed up at his penthouse. He didn't expect me. He answered the door in a t-shirt, barefoot, his voice rough like he hadn't slept. "Elise, don't," I said. "I'm not here for explanations." His jaw tightened. "Then why?" I walked past him, into the place that once held my laughter, my scent, my body tangled with his in sheets that still held my shape. "Tell me the truth. The whole truth. No filters. No pauses. No lies. He didn't move. He just looked at me with those haunted eyes. And then, he broke. "I never planned any of this," he said. "I swear on whatever part of me is still good I didn't know you when the board moved on your company. I didn't know who you were the night we met." I stayed silent. But the second I realized, I panicked, he continued, "because I was already falling, and I knew if I told you the truth, I'd lose you before I ever really had you. And now?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "I still lost you." He took a step forward. "I tried to fix it. I created that shell company so the board couldn't touch you anymore. I put my name on your shares because I thought it would protect you. You thought owning me would protect me?" I snapped. "No," he said quietly. "I thought loving you would." Silence. Thick, brutal. Then I whispered the words I never thought I'd say. "I loved you, Adrian." His breath caught. "I loved you even when I knew you could ruin me. I loved you when I wanted to hate you. I loved you when you lied, when you kissed me, when you handed me your resignation like it was a wedding ring. I love you still." And that was the tragedy, because I couldn't stay, not if I wanted to survive myself. I walked past him, toward the door. "Elise," he called, voice breaking. "If you walk away now." "I'm not walking away," I said. "I'm walking toward whatever part of me you didn't take." I opened the door, looked back at the man who had everything except me. "Maybe in another life, Adrian, one where you didn't have to choose between love and control." He didn't follow. He just stood there barefoot, undone, wrecked in a way only love can leave a man. And I stepped into the elevator. Let it take me down, away. But I didn't cry, because some endings aren't meant to be mourned. They're meant to be remembered so we don't make the same mistake twice. Still, every night since, I think of him, of the fire, the lies, the touch that made me forget who I was. And I remind myself, loving him could have ended everything. And I still did.